Live from our nation's capital, it's Deadline DC with Brad Bennett.
Hi, that was Green Day, who played at the Super Bowl yesterday, and I'm Brad Bennett. Every week on Deadline DC, we blaze a clear path to the utter confusion and complete chaos of that Donald Trump and the right-wing extremists who called him daddy created. I'm a national Democratic and progressive strategist. I'm a political analyst for News Radio KNX 93.7 FM in the City of Angels and a weekly contributor to The Hill in Washington, D.C. If you want to read my columns about Donald Trump's imperial presidency, you can get them at muckrack.com/Brad Bannon. Mondays on Deadline DC, I talk to the people and to the players behind the politics and policies that drive our great nation forward, or at least try to keep it from going backwards during Trump 2.0. We have two fascinating guests on the show today. In the first half hour, John Bennett, who covers the White House for Roll Call and Congressional Quarterly, joins us to talk about the latest from the Oval Office. Then in the second half hour, noted economist Dr. Robert Shapiro joins us to discuss the state of inflation in Trump's economy. Before we go to our first guest, we're going to play this clip from Green Day with career advice for ICE officers.
So when I win, I will immediately bring prices down starting on day one.
A vote for Trump means you're...
And this goes out to all the ICE agents out wherever you are. Quit your shitty ass job. Quit that shitty job you have. Because when this is over, and it will be over at some point in time, Kristi Noem, Stephen Miller, J.D. Vance.
Okay, that was Green Day. The president apparently switched to watching Kid Rock and watched Bad Bunny during the Super Bowl halftime, which dropped Kid Rock's viewership from 2 to 1. Anyway, our guest in this half hour is John Bennett, White House correspondent and editor-at-large at Roll Call and Congressional Quarterly. John, you cover the White House. What was President Trump's reaction to Bad Bunny and Green Day?
It was very predictable. He did not like it one bit. I think he all but admitted he hated it in a Truth Social that posted, I think, before the two teams even kicked off the second half. So they were ready to respond to this. In the business, we would call this kind of it was a response or a story in a can. Just open it, heat it up, and serve it. So they were ready. I think they wanted to see exactly what it was, like the rest of us. They wanted to see what the performance actually was. He said it wasn't consistent with American standards or values. And, this goes to the culture war aspect of this term, really both terms, but especially the second Trump term. They saw this as a chance to put that America first message out there last night. And that's what they did on Truth Social. He said, no one can understand what Bad Bunny is saying, which is true. The entire performance, best I could tell from my couch, was in Spanish. I'm not a Spanish speaker. I, like a lot of people I saw on social media, I did try to turn on the closed captioning, which was no help. So it was a natural thing for Trump. And this was a feud in months and months and months in the making, if not a year. I think it wasn't long after Trump came back to office that the NFL announced that Bad Bunny would be, they confirmed that Bad Bunny would be the Super Bowl halftime performer. there were murmurs and speculation before the league finally confirmed it. So fairly predictable, but still, you have a president weighing in on this with a growing slice of the electorate, part of the electorate that he did better with in 2024, and now he's attacking the biggest Latin star, maybe the biggest star on the planet. I admit to not knowing a lot about Bad Bunny before yesterday and last night. I was late to the party on that. So he's insulting this huge star, this heroic figure in the Latino Americans culture. And oh, by the way, there's a congressional election in November. So the timing here certainly giving Republicans even more heartburn. The more Trump does things, you're starting to see not a ton of pushback from Republican lawmakers, strategists, officials, but it is more than it was even 3 or 4 months ago.
I read that somewhere where Steve Bannon, Trump's former advisor in the White House, said that the movement is not very enthusiastic going into the midterm elections. And it made me, by the way, I'm no relations to Steve Bannon. I used to get nasty emails from people who thought I was Steve Bannon,
Right.
but I'm not, just for the record.
Right.
Do you think they think these attacks on Bad Bunny and, the ICE activity and abuses are going to help rev up Trump's base in November? Is that what they're trying to do here?
That is certainly the hope. You nailed it. And they're trying to. The president and his team are trying to, in a certain way, have it both ways. Have their cake and eat it too. He wants to do a lot on the global stage, and you've got hardcore MAGA Republicans like former Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene and others saying, trying to end the war, Russia and Ukraine, or trying to acquire Greenland. That's not very America first, Mr. President. But that is a big part of what Trump wants to do. But at the same time, he, as you say, he does need to keep the base fired up so they go vote for their congressman or their Republican Senate candidate. Maybe in a state like North Carolina or in another battleground state where those Senate races will be close. There are a lot of competitive House races. Those 17 districts that were red that President Biden flipped. A lot of those, all of those are up this year again. So they need the base to go vote for the Mike Lawlers, to go vote for some of the more vulnerable Senate Republicans. But Trump also wants to do all this not so much America first stuff. So they're trying to have it both ways. This is kind of the best way that you can do this, right? You can do mass deportations. You can keep your foot on the gas there. Other than drawing down the 700 immigration enforcement officers in Minnesota and Minneapolis, I haven't seen that many tactical changes. They've talked about them, but we still see these videos of ICE and Border Patrol getting into skirmishes with folks. So the tactics, have they changed? I'm not sold quite yet, but that's the way you get the base. You keep the base, try to keep the base fired up anyway. You do the mass deportations, and you do things like attack Bad Bunny on Super Bowl Sunday.
Now, you told me something before the show started that I didn't know. Talk about the NFL's motivation to inviting Bad Bunny to do the halftime show.
Yeah, it's fascinating how all these tentacles cross, but it's Trump, right? So all the tentacles are going to cross and wrap around each other and keep us all on the edge of our seats. The NFL wants to expand. The NFL is a money-making entity. They're kind of tapped out, though, if you think about it here domestically. They're not going to put a team in Hawaii. They're not going to put a team in Alaska. So where are you going to go? They've tried Seattle. They've tried St. Louis twice, and those teams left twice. Birmingham, not quite big enough. College football's way, way bigger down south. San Antonio can't quite pull it off. You've got the Texans up the road across the state. you've got the Dallas Cowboys with a huge stadium and a huge fan base. So that's the motivation here. And so where you're going to go? You're going to go international if you're going to expand at this point if you're the NFL. That's all indications. They're not going to go to Memphis. You've got the Titans in Nashville. So is it Europe? That hasn't really ever caught on in a big way, but there is interest from places like Mexico City, some other big cities in Mexico.
John, I'm going to have to interrupt you so we can take our break for radio listeners. We'll be back with John Bennett from Roll Call and Congressional Quarterly right after this very quick break. Welcome back to Deadline DC with Brad Bannon. Our guest in this half hour is John Bennett, who covers the Trump White House for Roll Call and Congressional Quarterly. John, let's move on to something else. Last week, there was a controversy where the president posted on his media site, Truth Social, a video that contained racist caricatures about Michelle and Barack Obama. What happened? How did that happen?
It's a very good question. The president, well, let's start with what his press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, initially said. She put out a statement last Friday morning. This video that contained the meme was posted around 11:30, I believe, Thursday night. It stayed up until around 11:30 a.m. Friday morning. So that's 12 hours. It was live on Donald Trump's Truth Social feed. And Caroline came out in her initial statement and basically told everybody to stop being so sensitive. This was clearly satire, and everybody should just get over it because the president was trying to make a broader point about voter fraud. What was not apparent and still isn't apparent is what that depiction of Barack and Michelle Obama would possibly have to do with voter fraud allegations. It's certainly not evidence of anything. And it wasn't too long after I had asked the White House and gotten Caroline's initial statement, I was asking them about it. Another report that was on Twitter from several journalists that the White House had finally had walked back that statement and said this was posted in error and that a staffer had let the president down and didn't watch the whole thing. Well, we chased that all day. We tried to get more details, and then the president hopped on Air Force One Friday night and contradicted his staff, then blamed his staff, and then kind of shrugged, threw his hands up, and went back to his cabin at the front of the plane. He played golf twice over the weekend. He went to a Super Bowl party at his golf course in West Palm Beach. He was on Truth Social all weekend about a range of topics, as I wrote this morning for Roll Call, and this was not one of them. He told reporters Friday night he didn't think he needed to and didn't plan to apologize to the Obamas because, quote, I didn't make a mistake, end quote. Trump did contradict his own staff, though. He said he watched the initial video, but not all of it. He said it made a strong case about the 2020 voter fraud allegations. And he says when you see something that strong, you post it. And the way he's doing that now is he sees something and he sends it to a staffer and they handle the actual posting of it. He says he didn't watch it all and the staffer didn't watch the whole thing. And he claims they never saw the racist meme. That's the evidence we have right now. And as I predicted Friday night, as big as this feels right now, this will probably evaporate by Monday morning. And it kind of has.
Okay. Welcome back to our radio audience. We missed you. Our guest in this half hour is John Bennett, who covers the Trump White House for Congressional Quarterly and Roll Call. We are talking about the president's busy week in the last week. I want to remind our radio listeners that if you want to watch us as well as listen to us, you can check us out at twitter.com/Brad Bannon at facebook.com/Deadline DC with Brad Bannon /videos, or on YouTube at Deadline DC. Our guest is John Bennett. John, let me ask you this. The Trump administration is a mess, basically. Or at least the American public thinks it's a mess. His job ratings are pretty bad. He just seems to lurch from one crisis to another. Usually in the scheme of things, this is when we see White House officials or cabinet members get dismissed. Is that likely to happen in the near future in the Trump administration?
If you remember a few months ago with the Vanity Fair interview that Chief of Staff Susie Wiles did, it was a series of interviews, and she said some critical things of not only the president, but other senior staffers and cabinet members. And there was scuttlebutt then that Miss Wiles, if not, I believe that was in October and November, that she would be leaving soon after that or around the first of the year. That has not happened. Ms. Wiles is still the chief of staff, and in fact, I believe she has a meeting with the president later this week about the agenda going forward. And also, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem was rumored recently to be on the outs because of the ICE shootings in Minneapolis and elsewhere. She seems to have, at least for now, she seems to have weathered the storm. Of course, the recent cabinet meeting, famously, she was sitting to the president's far left and the big oval table. He called on a handful of cabinet officials. He did not call on Secretary Noem, and that fueled speculation that she might be on her way out. Since then, he's been asked about her job performance, and he says he thinks she's doing a pretty good job. And he says the border is sealed. Illegal border crossings and engagements are way down from the Biden numbers. So he says that's her core function and she can stay. So unlike Trump 1.0, when we wrote stories almost every Friday, it felt like, about someone leaving about this time, they really haven't had any departures. So that is, and you would usually credit the chief of staff largely for that, for holding everything together. And he's always called Susie Wiles the most powerful woman in the world. So at least publicly, it seems like both those ladies are safe, and especially Wiles, a core part of the White House.
Okay, let me ask you another question. Right now, when it comes to making predictions, I try to be very conservative because I've been wrong so many times. But it seems to me that any objective look at the political situation suggests that Republicans in Congress are in grave danger. There's 9 months before the midterm elections, so things, can change. But that depends on Trump doing better. And it seems to me he gets progressively worse as time goes on instead of better. And so my question is, are people in the White House, is the president concerned about the midterm elections and the possibility of the congressional Republicans taking a big loss? Or does he not care? No skin off his teeth. He's leaving office anyway in 2 years. What do they think about the midterm elections, and do they have any? Maybe you talked about meeting with Susie Wiles about an agenda. What do they plan on doing, if anything, to reverse situation?
Yes, the answer is yes. They are concerned about the midterms. Trump himself has publicly warned that they could lose big in November, especially the House. The Senate still looks really difficult for Democrats, but not as extremely difficult as it did 6 months ago, right? I don't think the Senate's in play. I don't think Roll Call's election analyst Nathan Gonzalez thinks the Senate is in play right now. The House definitely is leaning toward the Democrats, and what the president can do to stop that bleeding. We get something every day. This meme came at a terrible time for Republican candidates. They're trying to raise money. They're trying to start getting out there in front of constituents. And then they had to defend this on Friday. Just terrible timing. And Trump continues, as you said, they were really rolling. The White House was really rolling. You didn't have to agree with the politics or the policies back in September and October, but it was from their perspective, win after win after win. They were feeling really good. They thought they might be able to hold the House, and the wheels just kind of came off in October. A lot of the things that they wanted to do that were in Project 2025, he used to sign 5 and 6 executive orders, and you get this sense that the big stuff, they've done it. They got the one big beautiful bill. The president himself has said, well, other than keeping the government open, I don't need a lot from Congress for the rest of the term. So it's a good question. What they wanted a housing bill. They wanted to do something else for farmers, working with Congress that would have probably enough bipartisan support to become law. But now they've gotten themselves into this DHS situation, which is a running shutdown threat every few weeks. And the Democrats want to change some of these ICE Border Patrol tactics on the ground. But I can tell you, the White House does not want to give in for big major changes that maybe a Chuck Schumer or a Brian Schatz, who looks like he'll be the next Democratic leader in the Senate. They want major tactical changes. So it's not clear where that deal is longer term. And they have to deal with that now for the next however many months. And there's no floor time for something like a big housing bill.
Well, let me ask you a question about that. If the Democratic leadership and the president can't agree on whether to change ICE tactics or not and what they can change, are we headed to a shutdown of Health and Human Services?
Oh, I think right now the shutdown would be DHS, would be Homeland Security.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
DHS.
Yes, we could be headed for a shutdown for DHS as soon as this weekend. Remember, though, next week is a scheduled recess for both chambers. So my bet would be on something like a 2-week continuing resolution or a 3-week continuing resolution. There's the Munich Security Conference. I covered national security for a long time. Those lawmakers do not want to miss a free trip to Munich. I hear it's beautiful. So I think a DHS shutdown is more likely at the end of the month or in early March.
Okay. John, want to thank you very much for joining us today. That was, we hope you can come back.
Absolutely.
We'll have more of Deadline DC right after this short break. Our guest in the second half hour will be Dr. Robert Shapiro, the renowned economist, to talk about inflation.